Hi, everybody. So I am really excited to have someone here whose videos I have watched for a while. Your channel was one of the channels that I started watching as soon as I got into the Johnny Depp stuff a couple of years ago. But I've got Stevie J. Raw here. Hi, Stevie.
Hello. Well, geez, thanks for having me. It's the first time we've ever caught up, I think. And like you said, I've watched your videos as well, not just on Depp, but on Manson too. And yeah, well, I think we've had, I hope I can say, like a respect for each other from the far, but we just haven't caught up
Yeah.
yet. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's certainly the way that I feel. And I've heard through the grapevine that Johnny Depp, from a reliable source, that Johnny Depp is a big fan of your channel. And apparently that he was watching your channel some during the trial, or a lot during the trial.
Oh,
Yes, that's what I've heard. So
I'm
anyway.
glad I put on my good shirts then.
That's right. Well, listen, I don't want to start on a negative note, but I do think that the most pertinent thing right now with you is what's going on with your channel. So can you just tell us, like, what's happened? Why were you suspended? What's going on?
Yeah. Okay. So I think it probably starts back with SEC, right? Spiritually Powered Coaching, and her channel. So she got all of a sudden out of nowhere demonetized. And it was very strange because it's for reused content. And I've since discovered that reused content is something that YouTube themselves don't really even understand. But her channel got demonetized. And then, I fought pretty hard about that. And then about 2 weeks after that, or 3 weeks after that, then I got a nice little email from YouTube saying, which was about a week ago, a bit over a week ago, saying, we've reviewed your channel and you can no longer monetize because of reused content. And, how much work it takes. You put in hours and hours and hours of work over years, and they just turn around and say, yeah, sorry, no, but you've got all this reused content. And I'm thinking, so out of my 550 odd videos, I've got probably 3 or 4 that are just like straight, audio recordings, or, a lot of the Johnny Depp stuff that we've seen, 4 or 5 hour recordings. Sure. I'm just put that out and give it to people to listen to, watch, whatever. But that's about 0.1% of my channel. So naturally I go to YouTube and I say, well, YouTube, what's going on here? Why all of a sudden, after 3 years of doing exactly the same content, have I been shut down, basically? And their response is, oh, wow, you need to go and review your channel. So I'm like, well, isn't that your job? Isn't that what you're meant to do? Like, you say you reviewed it already? Because you would know as well, and for people out there that don't know, like, if you breach their copyright policies, and if you use something you're not allowed to use in a video, they will tell you down to the second what part of that video you need to get rid of. So they can very, very much narrow it down to exactly what the problem is. But when it comes to reused content, they say, well, just have a look at your channel and just review it and see what you think. It's like, well, I think it's great. So why don't you just reinstate it? If it's all on what I think, let's go.
Right.
But yeah, so it's very frustrating.
Do you think that, well, for a couple of things, I mean, I think that YouTube right now is using a lot of excuses or pretexts to catch people. So I don't have a lot of confidence in them when they say that you're violating some rule. What do you think they would possibly mean? Just streaming the trial? Is that, do you think, what they're using as an excuse? Is that the reused content?
Well, look, the honest answer is I don't know. And that's really because YouTube can't point to it, or won't point to it.
Right.
What I actually think is that Amber Heard's fans, and one of her, companies that she engaged to work for her, Bot Sentinel, Christopher Boozy, admitted on Twitter that he targeted my channel and others as well. So he posted,
I'll put that up there for the audience too.
Yeah. He posted on Twitter saying, with a screenshot of my demonetization, saying, we did it, and basically another channel demonetized. Hopefully we take away their incentive. And I'm thinking, well, my incentive really is the truth. Like, the money's a nice kicker, and it does help the videos to be spread further and the truth to be spread further and wider. But it's not my incentive. I started covering the Johnny Depp case well before I had monetization at all. So for me, it's really, the truth. Let's get the truth out there. And we could see for so long that Johnny was innocent. So that's really the incentive. And I will just say as well, I find it very curious that all of these Amber people, whether it be Bot Sentinel, Christopher Bowsey, what's her name, Michelle Dauber. Oh my God, all of these people continue to fight us by trying to shut us down and silence us, rather than presenting us with any evidence that they might have to prove that Johnny's guilty or that Amber's innocent, because they don't have any. They just don't have any. And so I find that very, very interesting that they're prepared to shut us down and silence us, or at least try to, without actually using any evidence they don't have. They prefer to just remove our platforms altogether.
Right. And I think that it's not a coincidence that a number of us, and I haven't been demonetized or suspended or anything, knock on wood, but a number of us have been having problems with YouTube doing a lot of shady stuff. And I've talked before on my channel about some of the things that have happened with some of my videos getting re-reviewed when I didn't ask for it, and then suddenly demonetized when they were almost about to, one of them was almost about to hit 1 million views. It was that interview that I did with Manson's assistant where she denied what Amber Heard said about Thanksgiving. That was my most successful video, almost 1 million. And then it had passed the initial manual review. They did a manual review, they monetized it, and then right before it hit 1 million, they suddenly demonetized it and they cut off the algorithm. It went from getting 800 views an hour to like 5 an hour.
Right. Well, I'm sorry that happened, by the way, but that's a really good example of just how much it can limit the reach that the video has as well, right? Like the monetization on that one especially would hurt, like having that demonetized, but the reach is cut off, like 800 views an hour down to next to nothing in comparison. Yeah. Right. It's huge.
And it really is, you were talking about how YouTube said, well, just look at your channel and figure it out. It's very, to me, it's very Kafka-esque, right? It's like people have said YouTube's kind of like a black box. Like we don't really know what's going on. It seems very uneven and haphazard. They're targeting some people and not others. And then, like you said, and you're not the only one who said this, when you go to them for help, their response, an automated response basically is, just look harder. And am I understanding correctly that they didn't even review your appeal video? Did I see you post
Correct. So for people who don't know, so what happens, they send you an email, they say you demonetized, so that means all memberships are gone, basically everything is gone, and they won't even actually pay you for the previous month's YouTube AdSense. They won't pay you for that either.
What? Really?
Yep, they withhold that as well.
So money that you made when it was technically still monetized is now withheld? Yep,
withheld. Yeah, they won't pay it.
Oh my God.
But you can bet your bottom dollar that YouTube will take their percentage out of that. It's just my cut that I don't get. So yes, but so that happens, and you get this email and it says, okay, if you want to appeal, this is what you do. So you do an appeal video. So you basically just record a video like this, and you've got to tell them, this is how I make videos, this is how I edit, this is how I come up with my ideas, and it's my content. It's not reused content, it's my content. So yeah, I did that. And within 24 hours, I got an email from YouTube again saying, we've carefully reviewed your appeal video and we apologize, but we still can't reinstate monetization. So of course I ducked over and had a look, and there it is, plain as day, 0 views. Zero watch time. Not even one of the bots has watched. Not even one of the YouTube bots has watched. They didn't even push play and then walk away and make a cup of coffee. Nobody watched it. That's it.
I mean, it's in a way, it's not funny. Like you want to cry, but it's really though, like it's so absurd. It is so absurd, the game that they're playing. And I know that they've done it in various ways with others. And so what's the next step? Like, what do you do?
Well, I don't know. Do I have to do an interpretive dance? Maybe I'll do an interpretive dance. I'll try. But they say, okay, you can reapply in 30 days, which is as if you're reapplying for the very first time for monetization. So they say, just review our policies again and see if you've, breached any of the policies. And then, you can reapply in 30 days. So for me, I'm going to, I think I'll leave the channel there. Like I will leave it and maybe reapply just to see what happens. Because it'd be so interesting if they just approved it, without making any changes. But
I would definitely try. You never know.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a try. It's not going to hurt. But I'm also contemplating creating a new channel and just starting afresh One that perhaps maybe the all of the Amber stands don't have already flagged on their list, like my my main channel, because like you said in the intro, I've been covering it for a long time now, and most people on both sides would probably know something about my channel, I guess, and have it on probably some of their hit lists. So. Yeah. Anyway, I will. I'm trying to be positive about it. It really sucks, but I'm trying to be positive about it, and see it as an opportunity as much as I can to move forward and do something new or start a different channel. I mean, not necessarily do something new, but just have a fresh start. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's a good attitude. And you shouldn't have any trouble, I would think, getting monetized immediately with a lot of the fans and followers you have. It's just, as you know, we both know how annoying it is, the way that YouTube penalizes starter channels, because it does take, a lot of people who don't understand YouTube, they think that if you come up with a brilliant video, like let's say I made the most brilliant video that anybody's ever seen, but I'm a brand new YouTube channel. YouTube is not going to show that video to many people, right?
No.
It takes, unless you just like hit on some kind of crazy luck, but in general, it's not going to happen. And so that's why when these things happen to channels, like what's happened with yours, and people say, well, start a new channel. It's like, well, yeah, I can do that. But there is such a handicap in terms of that momentum that you're losing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not to be depressing. I'm not bringing
No. Well, it's all right. I'm going to go cry in the corner for a minute.
You're trying to be positive.
No. It's fine. I get what you mean, though. Like, and I understand, if people aren't doing it, they don't get it. But it is a lot of work, and it took me, 3 years to get to 27K subscribers.
And when did you start? Tell us the story of how you got into this. And did you start with the intention of covering Johnny Depp, or did you start your channel and then that happened?
I started the channel and I had no intention of covering the Johnny Depp situation. I started the channel actually reviewing movies, because movies have been a bit of a passion of mine, and I like doing that. And I had no intention of covering it, but then I was just drawn to it. And I think, as many people did, heard the audios that Brian, Incredibly Average, released. And after hearing those audios, I could not stop thinking about it. I couldn't get away from it anymore. And when I saw what the mainstream media was saying, and when I heard Amber's own words in those recordings and Johnny's as well, and I was like, this just doesn't seem right. I need to find out more about this. Like, it seems so opposite to what the mainstream is saying. And then, of course, I decided to dive even deeper in it. And that was around just before the UK trial, I think. And so the more that I dived into it, the more evidence I read, the more I was just absolutely certain that Johnny was innocent and that Amber was lying about everything. And, since then, I covered the UK trial, and I started off in more of a humorous type vein, putting little memes and stuff in the videos. But what really happened was a kind of an evolution for me in both a YouTube sense and just a personal, emotional sense too, because up until that point, I'd been quite unaware and quite naive, really, to the whole domestic violence issue. And so it really opened my eyes, because a lot of people who were supporting Johnny Depp, who are women, were commenting and saying, Johnny's innocent and I'm a victim and I've survived domestic violence and I'm on his side and everything. And to me, I sort of was like, oh, what's this other aspect to this trial that I have, or to this case that I've not really explored before? And that led me to, more and more questions. And so I started interviewing survivors of domestic violence on the channel. And again, it just sort of opened up my eyes some more and more to that. And then again, like I said, it was an evolution. So those were female victims initially, and then male victims started coming forward as well. And then, one of them, the first one that I spoke to, Gary, he was about 3 years ago now, or nearly 3 years ago that I interviewed him, and I are still friends. We still catch up, because what he went through was horrific, and he's still been going through it in the court system. But that again opened me up to something I was really naive about, which was domestic violence against men. And since then, it's just been a flood of information, and really being passionate about covering the trial, both trials, and in between, just finding whatever other evidence there was and connections. So either holes in Amber's evidence, which are plenty, and and backing up what Johnny said, which is essentially just the truth, and it's easy for him because it's just been the truth. But it led me down a path of wanting to also do something for male victims, because I had a look here where I live, and there's one shelter in this country, one shelter that caters for men of male victims of domestic violence. So
in Australia, is that where you are?
Yeah.
One.
So just one.
Whoa.
Yep. And I think you can find it on like page 17 of Google if you actually want to, look it up. So, I started a fund to create another shelter where I lived, which is down south in Victoria. And I've written to government, I've written to the parliament officials and everything like that, and trying to get some funding, because and this is a big thing for me, is I would never advocate for male victims at the expense of female victims, because I never want to say they don't exist, because of course they do. And of course, female victims are important, but there's such a disparity, because in the last budget for our government, they allocated $1.1 billion to female victims. And I think that's fantastic. Great. But $0 to men. Not a single dollar at all. So all I'm saying is keep helping women, but throw a little cash over here, like just to help these guys out. So anyways, it's that's kind of been my journey.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say that we know the statistics on domestic violence are pretty even, right? In terms of equal numbers of male and female victims. Is that mostly right?
Well, here we're sort of looking at 1 in 3 for women, and probably 1 in 4 to 1 in 5 of men, but that's based on what's still reported.
Yeah.
Because you think about how many men are going to report it, it's really hardly any, to be honest. Very, very few men are going to report it because of all the stigmas that surround domestic violence still. And we saw it with Johnny as well. I mean, the world was so eager to believe Amber just because she was a woman and she said this happened based on her word alone, because we still haven't seen any evidence. Right. And you look at poor Johnny, his life was ruined. So what does that tell other men out there? It says, don't come forward, because A, you won't get any help, and B, you'll be ridiculed in the process. So
right. And I think that and we saw some of this in the trial, I think that there are a number of people, especially if they haven't been through it or know someone who's been through it, that think that it's almost incomprehensible that a woman could really be a threat to a man physically, or really a danger. But a couple of things. First of all, and I'm not really trying to make a joke here, but just think about, if you've ever been attacked by a house cat, that's kind of crazy, just scratched up and stuff. Like something little can do a lot of damage. And I think the other thing we need to understand too, and this came out in some of the audio tapes with Johnny Depp and Amber, is that the man, he is limited in how much he can fight back, because, if a woman punches a man, that's going to really hurt. And a man punches a woman, you're in trouble then, right? And so it's like the man is having to defend himself with basically his arms tied behind his back, and that's the thing that Johnny Depp kept saying. If you keep pushing this, Amber, at some point, if I don't get away,
I might pop the wife. And he didn't even say that. He just said, I need to get away, because her biggest complaint was, of course, that he left all the time. He split all the time. So, the poor bloke's running around 7 different bathrooms trying to hide from her. And he said, I have to get away from the situation so that one doesn't pop the wife. And you're spot on. It's just, there's a huge disparity there. And to say, she tried to say that because she's 115 pounds or whatever, and she could never do anything, but that's just ridiculous. I mean, the majority of, statistically, the majority of female towards male violence or domestic violence is perpetrated with a weapon. So when you put a weapon into the mix, it changes everything.
A vodka bottle or whatever, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's, and I think that's probably the biggest, broadest issue with all of this is those reactions from society, those natural reactions from society to just go, oh, that can't happen to a man. It can't. And that's going to shut down the whole conversation immediately, isn't it? So, and not all men, not all women are telling the truth either, like we saw with Amber. So it's all just about listening and then verifying, we can't just take everybody's blanket statement that this happened to me as, okay, it's fact. But we've got to give some attention, I feel, to men, some attention, because there's just none there at the moment.
Right. And, the thing is, you were talking about how this doesn't detract from female victims and the fact that that's a problem. I get, you probably get the same thing, but as a woman, I get a question a lot. Why do you devote so much of your YouTube channel to men who you think were falsely accused? It's almost like people look at me like, what's wrong with you? What issue do you have why don't you want to focus on women? Why don't you? And, what I like to say is we're all called to different kinds of work in life, and not everybody is meant to do the same thing. Thank God not all medical students want to be heart surgeons. We need people for other things too,
of
right?
course. Yeah.
And I do feel like there's been, like you said, a lot of attention, especially lately with Me Too and stuff, a lot of attention on the female's perspective and what's happened to a number of women, but not on the idea of false allegations. And most people are in denial that false allegations even happen. I'm at a university right now. I'm sitting in a computer lab where I adjunct at times, and almost all of my colleagues do not believe that women lie about assault, like ever. Like I've had people who with PhDs say to me, women never lie about that stuff. And it's just astounding. It's just astounding.
Have they met women? I'm sorry. Like, I don't mean to
Have they met people, right?
That's exactly what I was going to say. We're all human beings.
Right.
And we're flawed. Like, I don't say Johnny's perfect. He doesn't say he's perfect. I'm not perfect. But we can't also, in the same vein, say women are not women are perfect. We can't say that. I mean, geez, it's a human issue. And this is what I say to people who bring that same thing up to me. Like, oh, you're being a misogynist because you support male victims, missing the fact that I support female victims too. But it's like, no, people in this world are bad people. There are bad people that exist. Doesn't matter what gender they are, they're bad people. And so if you blanket with all women tell the truth, no, like that's just setting yourself up to fail as a society. And I feel like that's what we've done. That's where we're heading still. Because unfortunately, where we are right now, men are bad. Everything that men do is bad. And everything that women do is great. So that's just the overall umbrella covering everything right now in society, I feel. And it's wrong. It's just dead wrong. I mean, you can point to so many examples of women doing the wrong thing. Why do we have female prisons? I don't know. What did they do? Did they do something?
Right.
We're just filling it for fun. I don't think so. They did something wrong, right? So, and I think, the other disparity is also with the conviction rates. Men, by and large, get convicted for, let's just use DV as the example. So I know there's a lot of case studies in the UK, especially, where a male victim of domestic violence, his perpetrator will get maybe 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whereas the man will go away for 15, 20, something like that. So, and just talking about women lying, I've got a really good case example to give on there. So one of the things that really sort of inspired me as well was the men that started reaching out to me while I was covering the Johnny Depp case and talking to victims, because they felt like, oh, someone's listening. We can actually communicate with someone here. And I'm no counselor by any stretch, but I was happy to talk to them. And this one guy I caught up to, and I did do some posts about his experience, but he essentially had always had anxiety issues and things like that. His wife was very abusive to him. She struck him. She broke his leg when he came home late from a party or something. And she did all these horrendous things to him. And so he would try and deal with that by drinking. He would drink a lot and sort of became almost alcoholic. And so that played right into her hands, because she then falsely accused him of domestic violence. And he got arrested. A jury convicted him and he went to prison for 8 years. He got sentenced to 8 years prison.
Oh my God.
Poor guy. And while he was in prison, some other prisoners found out that he was in there for SA, basically, for sexual assault. And so they tortured him. You
can say it on my channel. You can say words.
Yeah. So what they did was they heated up sugar and essentially made a homemade napalm and poured it over his body. And so he got 3rd-degree burns all over his body and still has all the scars and everything from that. And then he was, horrifically beaten and stabbed and all this stuff in prison. And then after 6 years of being in jail and being subjected to that, his ex came forward and said, you know what? I made it all up. And so,
No.
oh yeah.
Did
And
she
so
have
he
an
was,
attack of the conscience, or what happened? Do you know what made her do this?
he said that she just one day realized that, she'd lied about it and, attack of the conscience,
Wow.
went to the DA and said, yeah, I lied about it. So he got released, homeless, no job, nothing. And it's no apology, nothing like that. Just, okay, we'll let you go. So he's been through all of this horrific stuff. Now he's out of prison and he's homeless. And do you know what happened to her?
I would assume nothing. Yeah.
Not a damn thing. Not a thing. And look, I will say as well, just on that, he got to a better place. He's got a new family now, and he's actually happy. Like he's really happy. But he said he really struggled watching the Amber and Johnny trial because it made him relive a lot of those things that he went through, and it goes through his mind daily. So that's just one guy who reached out to me sort of on a chance that I would have a chat with him, and he's never shared that with anybody. So it's a horrific story, and there would be so many more of those out there. And I see a little positive to it though. And this is why I say, I've done a couple of videos on Johnny Depp and how Johnny Depp is inspiring men to come forward, and he's actually saving lives. And it sounds very dramatic to say, but guys like him not always move on and have a new family and have happiness. Some of them go, unfortunately, down the route of removing themselves from this world. And I know here in Australia, the male suicide rate is like 73%. So it's huge. And not all of that is linked into domestic violence. But when you consider that story I just told, it makes total sense that a lot of men who have nowhere to go and no one to talk to about this stuff just feel like there's no way out. So I do feel that Johnny's, stance on the truth, coming forward and standing up in front of the world and saying, yes, I am a man and I am a victim, is inspirational. It really is.
I agree with you. And he put himself through a lot. I mean, not only was, both of those trials, the UK and the aftermath, which is horrible. And then this trial. And then, some of the stuff that he continues to have to put up with in the media. You were saying earlier that, that you feel like we still, even despite the Johnny Depp stuff, that we still have a huge problem with people not recognizing male victims and false allegations and all that. And I would just say that the media response that we've seen, the mainstream media response that we've seen to this trial, it's like they're watching most of them, a lot of them, they're watching a different trial. And I think it just shows how much work we have to do, because even though some of us know the truth, it seems like the mainstream narrative, at least in the media and a lot of these blue check marks, the mainstream narrative is totally different. And I'm just so sorry that they harassed you, Boozy and those people harassed you and then put your channel up on his Twitter and made fun of you. And that must have been really infuriating, because not only are you having to deal with the demonetization, but you're having to deal with this asshole laughing at you.
Yeah. And I mean, it is frustrating to be targeted simply for sharing the truth. And that these people haven't watched any of the videos. They haven't watched any content. They just see the homepage. They see the thumbnails, which are all supporting Johnny and the truth and not supporting Amber. And they go, there's one. We'll get that guy, we'll get him shut down and stop all that anti-Amber discussion. And what they miss is they try to say it as anti-Amber content. Well, it's not anti-Amber intentionally. That's by default, because she's in the wrong. It's like, I just went on a search for truth. And sadly for them, the truth is that she's an absolute gold-digging liar and an abuser, and Johnny's innocent. So they just don't like the truth. That's all it comes down to. Because if I bet they're not out there, doing the same thing to, fans of Amber or channels that support Amber. So, no. And I mean, I don't know if you watched the Discovery Plus documentary that was done on the UK trial with Johnny and Amber.
I haven't.
But it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So bad. But what they use in there is they actually interview Bot Sentinel and say, because they're talking about Amber's claim that Johnny started this huge campaign of terror online to destabilize Amber and, you know, bring her reputation into disrepute. Oh my God. She did that all on her own. But they use Bot Sentinel, which is this Christopher Boozy company, to explain about the Twitter campaigns. And so they're big, this Bot Sentinel company that's like a, you know, tech company, and they do Twitter investigations and, you know, online investigations. Well, their big study they did was they looked at the Twitter accounts that supported Johnny Depp and said, yeah, there's a lot of them and they tweet a lot. So therefore they must be bots. You go, no, what that means is Johnny Depp's telling the truth. People by and large support the truth, and therefore they tweet a lot about it because they get passionate and they go, that's a lie, that's a lie, that's a lie. And they keep tweeting all day. So they really didn't do any actual investigation into it.
Yeah, it was a really crappy report. I was making fun of it on my channel, and how, you know, and if you look at the report, there was like a lot of the pages had a lot of empty space, you know, and and like you said, most of it was really, the extent of it was, yeah, there's a lot of people using hashtags too. They really don't like that. They don't like us using the hashtags too much. And then they had that anecdote about Michelle Dauber, how there was this professor who, you know the story about how she claims that someone was impersonating her dead daughter and was harassing her. And I think that's fishy. I don't trust anything that woman says. So.
No. Well, yeah, it's all just dodgy. And the you know, it got brought up in the trial as well. They tried to say that in Virginia as well. They tried to say about all the hashtags, and it was the campaign from Adam Waldman and Johnny, and trying to get Amber, trying to get people to hate Amber. It's like, she doesn't need any help, man. She can do all that herself. And when they tried to fool the jury by saying, oh, just look at how much the Justice for Johnny hashtag, and, you know, I'm so happy they brought up Amber Turd in a courtroom. That's just amazing. But they were tried to make it look as though the disparity was so big that it could be nothing but bots. Right. And you go, well, no, Justice for Johnny hashtag is off your chart, like literally off your chart you're displaying right now, because people support him because they support the truth.
Right.
Like, it's just insane how they try to play this game and say, oh, well, it's, you know, Johnny's harassing Amber and the fans of Johnny are harassing Amber. And look, I like Johnny. I've grown to really like the guy, but I was never a fan. I was just any other Joe on the street. And then when I started to get more and more into this and learn more about Johnny, and I was like, well, actually, he's a really bloody good dude. And so people want to say to me, and I don't know if you've got this. I mean,
oh, I get it a lot. Well, with Marilyn, with the Marilyn Manson stuff,
right.
You know, people say, oh, you just must be a crazy fan. And I've been very open about the fact that, you know, I mean, I still say I don't know very many songs even. You know, you can go back and look at my early videos. I'm calling him Marilyn because I don't even know what he's supposed to be called, right? And so, but that's I think they feel like our opponents, for lack of a better word, I think that they feel like that's something that can really get us on, is make us look like we're these crazed fans who have no objectivity. Yeah.
Which is not true. And look, I'm sure you're the same, if we could actually be given some kind of real evidence that was proving something the other way, you know, like if Amber had any real evidence, if Evan Rachel Wood had any real evidence, then we would look at it objectively and say, okay, well, that seems like they've actually got something. But the fact is they just don't. And it doesn't happen as much for me, but like I know a lot of female YouTubers covering either Johnny or Marilyn, you know, get the whole comment, oh, you just got the hots for him, like you're a fan and you just, you know, you just want to be his girlfriend. And so,
I get this all the time. People are always telling me, you realize that Marilyn Manson's never going to marry you, right?
Oh my God.
Really?
Because that's what you started this for, wasn't it?
Oh my gosh.
You've got all the wedding all picked out and everything.
Oh, but you know, I mean, and we know that some of these trolls too who are online who defend Amber, and they're ridiculous. But it's still it is annoying though. I'm sure you feel the same way when you feel like you've really, like, we show up every day or whenever we make these videos and we pour our heart out and we try to bring our best arguments and we try to be fair. And then there are some people, who just want to dismiss that, but that's the price of being on the internet, I guess. But it is, but when they start to target you on YouTube and get your channel demonetized and stuff, then.
Yeah. Well, I can handle all the comments. I can handle all that stuff. Like, people can think whatever they want, honestly. But you're right. When it starts to actually have an impact, and people like Bot Sentinel, Christopher Boozy, Michelle Dauber start to actually target and mass flag your channel, then that gets to be frustrating, because it does actually have an impact. People's words, really, I can let that go pretty quickly. But when it actually does something physical, like in a material, tangible sense, like taking money out of my pocket, wow, then I start to notice. And it's not just the money, as we said, because it's the reach. Like, YouTube just stopped sending the videos out to people. And in my view, that's the worst part, because the truth is limited. And not like I'm not sitting here saying I'm a 1 million subscriber channel and so many people are seeing my videos, but it's just taking an avenue away for people to access the truth, at least.
Yeah, and particularly people who have an interest in the stories, the kind of stories that you cover. So was the turning point for you, you said when you heard the Incredibly Average, the audio of Amber and Johnny, in terms of figuring out what was going on there? Was it the audio?
Yeah. I heard the it was the one, probably the most notable one, I think, for everybody, which was when she admitted to throwing things at him, when she admitted to hitting him and everything like that. That was the first one that I heard. And then I think, Brian has a lot of great videos that he did. Like, just the amount of work that guy did is amazing. And so I dived deep into those videos as well. And I was like, every time he did a video or it's something he brought up in his video, I'd go, exactly. Good point. Like, wow, that's amazing. And when you see holes in, or at least when I see holes in a story like that, like Amber's, I just have more and more questions. And so, yeah, that was the turning point, listening to those audios and then wanting to find out more. And so then I just went into court documents. And then a lot of what I've done on the channel is reading court documents, just directly reading them to people. So that's just trying to give people the objective view. And then, of course, other ones I've given my opinion on. But I think that, to me, what I see is the mainstream media spin everything into whatever narrative they want to push. And so to give people the court documents, you're giving them the ability to decide for themselves, which is what mainstream journalism these days has taken away from everybody. They just put their own interpretation on it. When, people are intelligent enough, for the most part. People are intelligent, right? So give them all of the information and let them decide for themselves. Right.
Yeah, and we really are lucky that we got to hear those audio tapes of Amber and Johnny. For me, it was very similar. I remember for me, the first turning point, it was like two turning points. The first one was when I read that he had sued her and sued, the Fairfax thing. I remember it was early in the morning. I was staying in a hotel room with my sister. We were on a trip, and it was like 4 a.m. and I awakened or couldn't sleep, and I was on my phone, and I see on Twitter somebody posting, "Hey, it looks like we might have been wrong about Johnny Depp." And so I start reading the lawsuit, and I just remember thinking, I'm like under the sheets here with the light on, and I'm just like, oh my God. And so at that point, I thought, okay, this looks really bad for Amber, but then this is just his lawsuit. And I wasn't used to looking at lawsuits back then and stuff. So I was just like, okay, but then when the audio came out, and that's the thing that's dumbfounding to me about Amber's supporters and about a lot of these blue check marks and a lot of these mainstream media people, is that how can they have listened to the same audio that we listened to and not clearly? I mean, it's so clear. I just don't understand.
It's obvious. You try to explain it, but you don't need to. It's right there. Like, it's obvious. And I don't know about what you were like, but when I came into covering this case of the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case, I, like I said, was pretty naive to all of this stuff. But listening to the audio, I instantly went, well, hang on, who's meant to be the abuser in this relationship? They're telling me it's Johnny, yet he's saying he needs to leave all the time, and he doesn't want physical fights, and he doesn't want to argue, yet she's, screaming that she wants to fight. Why don't you fight me? Why don't you fight me, Johnny? I want you to fight me. What? That doesn't sound like a victim to me. And again, like I said, I didn't really have much experience in that area or know anything about it, but it's just very counterintuitive. And I don't understand how people can't see that. And that's why I say about the mainstream media, they're either intentionally, subversive towards this kind of topic, or they're entirely unintelligent and negligent in their job. Well, I think it's the former. I think they know what they're doing and they're doing it on purpose. But, how do they think they're not going to get called out? I mean, we've seen recently, like with, the unsealed documents and Andrea, and it's just all these people bringing out their articles, the blue check marks jumping on board saying, oh, check out this. I read 6,000 pages of documents. No, they didn't. They didn't read a damn thing. They just read what somebody else said about it, and then they wrote it,
Right.
They never actually research, I find.
Right. I think, you're talking about, is it a willful ignorance, or are they really just that dumb or whatever? I think it's almost a kind of a, I like to talk about Freud a lot on my channel, but I think it's some kind of almost like semi-conscious denial, like somewhere in the back of their mind, like they really like, they're what, but it's just so to them, it is so destructive to their worldview to admit that this woman could not only lied about abuse and assault and all that, but like constructed an elaborate hoax. Like that's the part I think that really bothers them. And then also the idea that we've all been bullying her, when in fact, no, we haven't. God. She's just finally, as someone says, she's just finally getting the delayed reaction, the delayed karma that's been building up all of these years,
Yep.
So anyway, well, tell me, so you're working on raising money to start a men's shelter. Do I understand correctly?
Yeah. So just before the Fairfax trial started, I think I started a GoFundMe to just raise initially the funds to engage a lawyer, an attorney, to set up the legal framework essentially that you have to set up here in Australia to create a nonprofit, because a shelter really has to be a nonprofit because it is a charitable organization. So that's basically done. People have been so generous that we ended up raising just under $4,000 for that. So that's been amazing. I've had one catch up with the attorneys, and I've got a catch up next week, a meeting with the attorney to go through the more finer details of how to set it up and the framework and everything like that. So, and I put out a tweet asking people to give me name ideas for the shelter. So people came up with Sparrow's Nest, which I think is really cool. And so
I like that. That's good.
Yeah. So a little link there to Johnny as well, but that should be established as a official nonprofit within the next, I'd say, 4 to 6 weeks. Once we catch up with the lawyer and everything. And so from there, what we'll be able to do is, once it's official, then we'll be able to use that as a way to raise funds to actually get the physical shelter built. And that way, when there's an official legal nonprofit, then I can apply for grants from the government. Then I can, petition them more strongly to say, it's not just old Stevie J asking for a government grant. It's actually a proper non-profit organization. So
get some of that $1 billion that they are giving only to the women.
Well, just something, just even $10. Just throw us $10. Like it'd at least be something. But I mean, one of the politicians, the federal politician, did reply and said that if they get into office in the next election, which is later this year, then they'll put some attention to it and try and allocate some funds to it. So I mean, that's something. I'm not really a huge, person that trusts politicians that much, but if they do it, then great. But yeah, it's just something that I'm passionate about. Hearing those stories that from the men who came forward to share their stories with me, looking at what happened to Johnny, it's just like, men need help. These guys need help, and they need somewhere to go. It may not be the be all end all. It may not fix everybody's problems, but it's a starting point. I feel it's just a starting point.
Well, I think that's great. And however long it takes you or whatever the process is, I think it's great you're doing that. And I'll definitely put some links below, not only a link to your channel, but if you link to your organization or your funding site or whatever.
Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great.
So hopefully when you get your channel monetized again, or with a new channel, or both, hopefully. What are some of the cases that, or what are some of the things that you're going to be looking at in the future? I guess you're going to continue this focus on male victims, right?
Yeah, I will. I think I'll probably stick with the same sort of theme. So I'll definitely be supporting victims, but Marilyn Manson, as you've extensively covered and done such a great job on, I'll probably start talking about that some more.
And yeah, you've made a few videos kind of dipping your feet
in,
right?
Yeah, I covered his complaint against Evan Rachel Wood and Neil McGaw, and so I want to dive a whole lot deeper into that. It seems like the stuff with Johnny and Amber continues, so I'll probably keep covering that as well. But I really think that the theme will be for me is I want to bring the truth to the people out there who seemingly don't get it from the mainstream. So that's, I guess, the overall theme of where I'll be headed. As far as specific cases, they seem to just, if I just sit for a minute and take a breath, they'll pop onto my lap, and there we go. There's another case to cover. So yeah,
I know it's not an uncommon thing. That's another critique that I get about my channel, is that I only talk about men that I think are innocent and not the guilty men. Well, there's a lot of people, I think, talking about the guilty men, but there are not very many people, other than a few of us, who are out there trying to raise awareness about men who may be falsely accused. And of course, and the Marilyn Manson case is really complicated, super complicated. And I totally understand people who are reluctant about that and say, well, I don't know what to think, and I don't want to assume he's innocent. And I think that's great. And I'm not pressing anyone to make a commitment. But what I am saying is we have forgotten our society about the presumption of innocence. Right. And so you get these cases, whether it's Johnny Depp, or I think in the Marilyn Manson case, where there's a lot of media attention and a lot of incentives for women to make up stuff, Well,
there is, and there's no disincentive as well. There's no punishment for it. So
that's a good point.
You look at Amber, and I mean, yeah, sure, she got proven a liar in a defamation case, in a civil case, but you apply that to other cases, much like Jay, that bloke I was telling you about. There is no penalty for any of this stuff, and false allegations are so damaging. You hear countless stories of guys who've lost their jobs, even though they've been found innocent. People still don't want to hire them. They just, their friends and family disown them and things like that. And it just absolutely ruins their lives. But you're right. We're so reluctant to look at that. And what they've done, the justice system, I say here, and the court system, is they've really just given free license to women to say, oh yeah, this happened to me. It doesn't matter if it was 10 years ago. It doesn't matter if it was 50 years ago. And I don't want to say you can't, as a victim, bring things up later, but when it's made so convenient, the avenue to this sort of thing is so convenient, and there's no penalty, well, then, of course, the bad people, I'm not saying the actual victims and the genuine women here, but the bad women will do that. They'll say, oh, there's an opportunity. I can do that. Yeah. I like cash. I can sue someone rich, famous, all of those sorts of things. Not that it happens only to rich and famous, but I mean,
they're good targets. They're great targets.
Oh, they're perfect targets because you're going to get a tangible benefit out of it, aren't you? Like,
right.
With Johnny, Amber wanted all the stuff. She wanted all the, Range Rovers and 50 grand a month and all of those things. She didn't really love him. She wanted all of those things. Marilyn Manson. I mean, I feel bad for Marilyn Manson, because he's, Johnny's always been a great guy, and he's always, he has no issues with his persona, his public persona. But you look at Marilyn Manson, you're like, shit, man, I'm sorry. Like, he's an easy target, right? Because of his artistic expression, he's an easy target. But again, I feel like we need to just dial up the intelligence a little bit of people and go, look past that, like look through that. At least give him the benefit of the doubt enough to ask a few more questions and just look a little deeper and look at some of the interviews he's done. Have a think about some of the, the private stuff that he said. He's just a guy. He's just a normal guy, but he's an artist who expresses himself in, sure, a way that people don't always relate to, but that doesn't matter. That's the whole entire point of being artistic, isn't it?
Yeah, no, he does have two handicaps in all of this. One of which you mentioned is the artistic persona that that he's cultivated that is so negative
Right.
to most people, and then also the
Mhm.
fact that because he's lived an edgy rock star life. The man
Mhm.
he's been a coke addict for most of his adult life. I mean, I'm not trying to
Mhm.
shy away from these things,
Right.
right? He's
Yeah.
sober now. He's been sober, I think, for a couple of years, but you know, probably an alcoholic, we would say, and he's had rocky relationships. So you know,
Yeah.
it's not it's not as clean of a case for people. You know, it's not Saint
Yeah.
Johnny, or at least Saint Johnny as people see him, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but what I keep trying to say about the Manson thing is, yeah, you may not love him, you may not like his persona, and look, he may have lived a messy, imperfect life, but I do not think that the evidence indicates that he assaulted these women and did what they are
Mhm.
saying to him. I do think he's the victim of a hoax. And you can hold those two things in your mind at the same time, that this guy's some issues and messy life
Yeah.
and whatever,
Yeah.
but then at the same time that what is happening to him is not right, you know?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's a great point. Like the evidence, you know, you can separate those two things, and one doesn't necessarily equate to the other. Like just because somebody takes drugs their whole life, is a rock star, you know, makes videos. I mean, if you were to apply some people's logic and say, oh, well, Marilyn Manson did drugs and he's got these, you know, crazy out there video clips and his music clips and everything, then if you were to apply that logic to everybody else, you go, well, okay,
Right.
look at all of these filmmakers who've made horrific horror films. You'd go, oh my gosh,
Right.
this person's horrific. How did they come up with that? And what were they smoking when they came up with it?
Right.
But we don't do that because we automatically go, oh, it's just a movie. It's just a film. Well, a
Right.
music video is just a music video. Somebody's on-stage persona is just an on-stage persona. I mean, and being on drugs, that doesn't equate you to being guilty of a violent crime.
Right. And they tried to do that to Johnny in the trial
Mm-hmm.
too. They focus so much on his drug and alcohol use and stuff. When Amber Heard, you know, the media gives her a free pass for the, what is it, two bottles of wine a night that she has to consume minimum.
Yeah. 160 grand a month on wine. Yeah. And
Oh,
then Rocky gets up there and she's like Io first was in his deposition going, oh, yeah, Amber doesn't like coke. She doesn't do cocaine. Oh, no. And then Rocky gets in her deposition. She's like, oh, yeah, we did coke a few times. Yeah, for sure. She likes cocaine. It's like, who cares, people? Just admit it.
Oh my gosh.
Just admit it.
What I wouldn't give to be a fly on the wall with that social circle, Amber social circle, as this thing over the past couple of years has started to really fall apart. I mean, I know that they're not friends anymore, you know, that group for obvious reasons, right? But I'm sure that, you know, one day someone's going to make a movie about this whole thing, and it's going to be great.
Well, if I had the funds and the, you know, connections to make a movie about it, I sure would. And I mean, you know, it would be on the side of Johnny, of course, because that's the side of the truth. But it would almost be comical. Like, how do you decide making it a drama and a comedy? Because the things that they've done are just it's like a farce. Comedic. Yeah, it's like a Benny Hill show. Like I expect the circus music to be playing with all the things that they did, you know, with the penthouse and the spilt wine and the police coming, and like none of it makes any sense at all what they tried to say. And the thing is, one of the things that I sort of noticed about myself throughout this whole Johnny Depp and Amber Heard thing is, when you notice that somebody is lying about even the smallest thing, then you can certainly guarantee they're lying about the big thing. Because if she just doesn't want to admit that she took drugs, that she's so willing to lie about that, of course she's willing to lie about all of the big stuff too. And we all got to see her live squirming on the stand trying to say that pledging's the same as donating. I mean, she nearly said the word non sequitur as well. She wanted to, I think.
That is non sequitur. Yeah, well, her inflated vocabulary, to me, that's always been funny. She very much wants to appear like she's brilliant, but I'm not sure that there's. Well, she's diabolical. I'll give her that.
Wow. Yes. She's got that sort of devious intelligence. That's for sure.
What do you think happens to her after this? Do you have any guess as to what she does?
It's really hard to say. I think you know, if I was to give her any advice, and I don't want to give her any good advice, but she should have just stayed quiet after the guilty verdict. Well, not guilty, shouldn't say that. After Johnny was found to be telling the truth, and she was found to be lying, 100% lying, she should have just gone quiet, just radio silence for 3-6 months, and she would have had a chance, I think, at coming back in quietly into Hollywood, because let's face it, no one knew who she was before. So she could have just gone straight back into her C-grade movies and no one really would have been the wiser. Not really. But instead, she wanted to go and do her, you know, do the wrong thing to her and go on all of these morning shows and say, no, I stand by what I said. I stand by it and I'm going to appeal. And, you know, we couldn't bring in the UK verdict. It was all about the UK verdict. So I don't think she's going to be able to be given any roles in Hollywood now. She had a chance to be quiet and come back in 6 months ish. But now that she's done all this and doubled and tripled down, she's really toxic for Hollywood as well now. Because even as much as Hollywood want to say, you know, we support Me Too and we want to support all women and everything like that, they still can't get away with that. They know it's going to damage their brand if they have Amber involved in anything. So I think she's sort of done, to be honest, which is probably the only punishment she'll get. I do hope that in Australia, because I know they're still investigating, the Australian Federal Police are working with the FBI to investigate the dog smuggling and the perjury that happened there. So I'm very hopeful that all comes to fruition very soon and she gets charged with perjury, because that would be an actual real criminal charge. And I really would love to see that, because she deserves some sort of punishment. And would it be enough for the things she's done? Probably not, but
It'd be something.
It would be something. It would be something. So I know she's very worried about that. Like just through some inside sources, I know she's very worried about the perjury charges coming. So it'll be interesting to see.
Well, we can hope your government comes through in that
We can hope.
respect.
Yes.
Well, Stevie, thanks so much for joining me. And I'm so glad that we finally got to do this after, you know, watching each other's videos for a while now. And I hope that everything works out with your channel, with the old one and the new one. And I'll be sure and put the links below for people to find you.
Well, thanks very much. And yeah, it's really been so nice to catch up eventually. And yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Thanks so much.
All right. See you later, everybody. Bye-bye.